So the recording is going on. And you said before I started the recording that we had beeper problems. What was the deal there?
Yeah, well, I guess I was a bad student yesterday, and I I'm assuming I did something wrong. So I turned the beeper on, and then it has the constant beep, and then I press the button to get it to stop beeping. Is that what I'm supposed to do, right?
Yep, yep.
Um, so I did that, and then it gave me a beep, and then it followed that with
And when you say it gave you a beep, you mean immediately or 10
no, it
minutes
gave me a
later or
beep
a
after
half an
some
hour
time
later?
within the hour,
Okay.
and then it gave me the beep, and then it went to the constant chirping, sort of like the fire alarm chirp, pretty shortly after, right? And what did you say the fire alarm chirp was again? That was
That's the beeper telling you that the instrument has a trying to save its battery. So let's go back a notch here. So the you got the first beep 20 minutes or so something like that after you turned it on.
right, 40 or something like that.
And then did you stop the beep by pushing the white button then?
I think so.
If you're not sure about that, that would be
Uh,
what got us into
so
the
you need
issue.
to stop. Okay, so I didn't stop it, I think.
Right.
So it went into chirping. So it chirps when you don't stop it after
That's
that.
right.
Okay, so then that is my fault. So then I thought it might be a battery issue, so I bought new batteries and put them in, but that was a while later. Um, and then I've been waiting what seems like what's definitely more than an hour for the next beep. Um, and yeah, it's on. So maybe I put the batteries in wrong in that case.
So push the white button down and hold it down, and does it give you the square wave?
Yeah, it does.
Then
So
it's
it's not the battery.
the square wave means well everything is working and it is it is en route to making another beep.
Right. So I'm just surprised because I think I set that more than an hour ago. So I thought I was at least going to get one or two more good beeps in before our convo, but I didn't.
So do we have one beep? Is that
You have a single beep.
we have a single beep? Well, I would say we ought to talk about that beep.
Yeah.
And have we cleared up the issue? So where we've gone wrong here is that you need to stop the beep.
Right.
So the sequence basically that we have in mind is
Yeah.
I hear the beep. I pay
Mhm.
attention to what I try to freeze what was going on in my experience.
Right.
Then I stop the beep and then I write down something about it.
Right. Um, okay, so I have one beep,
All right.
and even that, I don't think I was the best in capturing the fine details of the experience, but I have something.
Okay. Let's do it.
So I was reading the word educators, and I was inwardly hearing educators or sounding educators. Um, and I also had a more diffuse nonverbal feeling that what I had written was bad. So I was reading over my own something I had written, and I was stopping on the word educators. And then outside of that, I had a feeling that the sentence wasn't right, that there was something wrong with it.
Okay. And so is that the initial description there? So shall we
Yeah.
talk about some pieces of that? All right. So I'm reading something that I've written, and is that on the computer or written on paper or
This was a document I had written on the computer in a Word doc.
okay? And is it fairer to say that I am reading the word educators, or I am reading a sentence that includes the word educators, and the beep happens to get me at the word educators?
The
So
latter.
so I'm reading a sentence which is something like in 1979, the educators beep.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. So it's not like I have singled out the word educators
Mm.
and focused on that. It's that I am reading a sentence which it does include the word educators, and the beep catches me in mid sentence.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm understanding then that I'm reading a sentence, and the beep catches me in the mid sentence, and the word happened to be educators.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then the I'm innerly sounding that.
Yes.
And what does that mean?
Um, I'm innerly, I'm thinking of the word educators. That word is in my consciousness somehow, but I don't know if I'm not hearing it. I'm just focused on that word.
So let me start by asking the same kind of questions that I was asking just a minute ago. So are we talking about that word, or are we talking about the sentence up to and including that word?
Um, I have a comprehension of the sentence, um, but my but I'm sort of stopping on that word and innerly repeating educators to myself
So
in
there's
my
some
mind.
so there's something discrete about educators that is
Yeah.
separate from the rest of the sentence as far as my experiences, my repeating experience or articulating or whatever experience is.
Right. Yeah, I think yeah, I don't know if sounding is the right word. But
Okay.
that is what's coming in my inner consciousness is that particular word.
And is it a repetitive educators, or is it just educators?
No, it's not repetitive, but it's I'm innerly saying that to myself. So I'm focused on that particular word at that particular moment.
Okay. So let's use the verb innerly saying without trying to be too critical about that at the moment. But so I'm still sort of on the track that I haven't yet totally resolved, and that is, so am I innerly saying educators, or am I innerly saying this whole sentence and the beep catches me at educators? I shouldn't say the whole sentence. I should say the sentence up till now. So in
Um,
1979, the educators beep. So have I articulated in this innerly saying
I'm
way?
not I'm not quite sure. Um, but I haven't done the same thing with every single word in this sentence. So I haven't done it with as, I haven't done it with is, you know, I'm reading this sentence and then I sort of latched on to the word educators
Okay.
and I innerly, and I'm, and I'm thinking of that word.
Okay.
Now this is the part where I didn't, my notes aren't very detailed, maybe because I was too anxious over if I was doing it right.
Right. And
So,
and
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 if
so
the
so
beep
that
was,
this
yeah,
is the way the first sampling day always is. So I'm totally happy with our conversation here, and I'm not expecting you to be good at it on the first day. I'm expecting us
mm,
to have to figure out what we need to get good at, and then that'll make it easier the next time around. I think maybe we'll see about
yeah,
that. So So I think I've got the timing issue sort of resolved as far as we're going to get it today. But so now let's move towards the inner saying, articulating, sounding, hearing. I think we've used a bunch of different words for that.
mhm,
And it seems like it's just the word educators. So in
mhm.
some way I am presenting to myself. I am somehow particularizing educators for myself.
Mhm. Right.
And does that seem like a saying thing? Like I'm speaking this to myself? I'm understanding there's no words coming out of my actual mouth, but does it seem like I'm speaking, or does it seem like I'm hearing? I hear.
Yeah, I would call it a type of, I would most associate it with inner speech, which is not an actual speech, but just sort of what I understand as whenever I think. of something and present a word to myself in my mind. That's, I think I call it inner speech, I guess.
Okay.
Um,
So the one of the interesting challenges of our experiences of our time together is going to be to try to sort out what we mean by these terms. So
right.
we have to start with the assumption that what you mean by inner speech and what I mean by inner speech might not be the same thing. Might be the same
Yeah,
thing.
this is true.
I'm not I'm not disagreeing with you or not believing you or whatever. I'm just saying if we're going to understand each other, we got to make sure we understand.
Right.
So this doesn't. So let's start with the distinction between speaking and hearing. This is more like producing words than it is like hearing. And the distinction there might be something like if you speak into a tape recorder, that's one thing, and if you hear your voice coming back out of a tape recorder, that's quite a different experience for most people. And it's not. I'm not just talking about the timbre or whatever, but that in one case I'm producing the words, and in the other case I'm receiving.
Yeah, it seems to me more like a producing kind of thing because it's focused on sort of the vowels and the formation of the sounds without actually moving my lips.
Okay, so
So I think it starts from like I think it's starting from a speech without necessarily thinking strongly of forming that speech, but
okay, so one of the things that I want us to learn over the course of our time together is the to distinguish between what would have to happen in the natural world and what has to happen in experience. And I would like us to recognize that those two things might be entirely different from each other.
right.
So in the real world, speech probably has something more to do with vowels than consonants or something like that, and the consonants get added later or whatever. That might very well be true in the real world, but that's not at all necessarily true in the experiential world. So what I would like is to what I call bracket away
Right.
the actual world. So maybe it's that way, maybe it's not in the real world. But let's not presume anything from the real world into the experiential world. So I'm gathering that this is a more of a productive thing than it is a receptive thing. I am somehow producing the word educators, not the whole sentence, but I am producing for myself, in myself, of myself, whatever. I am
Right.
producing educators as I exteriorly read this sentence.
Right. Yep.
Okay. And is there anything more to be said about the experience of this producing educators?
Only that I think my knowledge of how exactly that's done may improve in the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what the first day is always about. We want it. We want descriptions to be sort of bad on the first day.
Right.
Because the alternative is to have really good descriptions on the first day. And if we have really good descriptions on the first day, then those are almost always presuppositional or theoretical or whatever.
Right.
And our job is to set aside those presuppositions and theories and whatever. So we want to, sometimes I say it's sort of like wading into the water. We're not swimming yet. We're getting wet. We're
Yeah.
moving towards swimming, and we're going to figure out what kind of strokes we need to make once we get there. So let me restate what I have heard here. I'm reading. It's not like I've stopped reading, but I am reading what I've written so far, and I am articulating the word educators, and I may have articulated some words before that, but it's not like I'm articulating the whole sentence. I have somehow particularized this particular word.
Yeah.
And then, beyond that, there is some kind of a feeling that something's not right here.
Yeah.
And tell me more about that, if there is anything more to say about that.
This is a general, it's sort of this whole experience of sounding this word to myself is tinged with negativity and anxiety that the sentence I have written is not right or appropriate or the right thing to say, that this is not the right word, that I should not be talking about these educators at all.
So does that seem like a cognitive thing or a affective thing? I'm analyzing my sentence and
Affective, I'd say, um, in that this is sort of like what's coloring my entire experience of reading the sentence. And I don't, when I'm reading Sending Educators, I'm not, this is sort of, this is sort of how I'm feeling about what I'm saying.
okay. So it's not like I have analyzed what I have said and determined on the basis of some cognitive process, this isn't right. I shouldn't be calling them educators. I should be calling them something else or something.
Yeah.
This is more, it just doesn't feel right. It feels,
Yeah.
and that feeling is anxiety-ish.
Yeah.
And was there another, I think there was, you used another word other than anxiety, but I forget what it was.
Yeah. So maybe I was talking about it being wrong, I guess.
Okay. So some wrongness, but it's not wrong in just the sense of being incorrect. It's wrong in the sense of being, I
Not
guess,
the right word.
fundamentally wrong or
Right.
anxiety arousing wrong or
Yeah.
organismically wrong or something.
Right.
And does that sense of wrongness seem directly present to you? So the distinction that I'm trying to tease apart here is it could be that I'm saying educators in such a way that reflects the fact that it's not the right word. I'm saying educators, and it's got the inflection that's wrong. So I am indicating in the saying of it that it's not the right word, or does it seem like I feel a wrongness sort of in parallel with this saying of wrong?
Well, I'm having trouble distinguishing between the two things you said, but I think it would be more the latter, is that I'm feeling a wrongness in parallel with everything I'm reading in this sentence, and I have fixated on the word educators. So maybe it's not necessarily that educators is wrong, it's just that everything I'm doing with this sentence is wrong.
Okay. So the distinction that I was trying to make is A, possibly not possible to make. So it could be that the reason you're having difficulty is that I'm asking something that's not possible. But the distinction that I'm trying to get to is whether this anxiety wrongness stuff is directly present to you.
Mm.
And so even if you weren't speaking the word, I would still feel this is separable enough for the word that it's possible for me to imagine not speaking the word, but still feeling this
Yeah,
wrongness theme.
definitely. I would say it's that, yeah.
Okay. And is there anything more to be said about how that presents itself to you?
Um, no, because I wasn't able to record it in enough fidelity to my liking.
Okay.
Yeah, I got too anxious about the beeps.
Okay.
Um,
So that's totally
I
fine.
wrote down doubt over. So it's not just a wrongness, but like a there's a doubt to that what I'm doing is correct.
Okay. And how does that doubt, wrongness, anxiety? Is this like a bodily thing or a mental thing, or and by mentally I just mean not bodily, or is
It
there?
has something to do with the fact that it's not just a wrongness, but that it's a wrongness that I could do otherwise. That because I'm wondering whether to change the words or not. So are these the right words, or should I pick other words?
Okay.
And whether it's bodily, yeah, I don't know in what capacity it's bodily or cognitive.
Okay.
Sort of.
So, so these are fundamentally difficult and perhaps impossible distinctions to make. But
Mm,
let me sort of maybe exaggerate what the difference could be. So, in a purely cognitive world, I could say, well, I read this sentence. That sentence has some incorrect implications, and I could judge that on the basis of the word choice or whatever, and maybe I should write some other words, which would that could be sort of a purely cognitive thing.
mm.
Or it could be that I'm reading those sentences and I just feel it it
I
attacks
think,
attacks me or
yeah, I think
something.
all these negative feelings are quite bodily at that moment. I think there's a bodily feeling of not rightness. I should do something else. Yeah, there's not a good bodily feeling at this moment.
Okay. And then let me expand also, and that is that the feeling aspect, which I mimed as being sort of bodily, that feeling aspect can be just as mental as it is in the body. So for some people can have very clear emotional feelings, and they're not at all bodily, and
Mm,
other people can have very clear emotional feelings, and excuse me, they would say, "Well, I feel it in my heart or in the left side of my chest, or I feel my body tense up or whatever." I don't think there's any reason to think that one of those is better or worse or whatever than the other. We can have directly apprehended emotions, which I
right.
call feelings, that are bodily, and we can have directly apprehended emotions that are mental,
Mm,
and by mental I mean not bodily.
yeah. Yeah, that's something I'll have to keep watching out for. I could definitely say that it's somewhere in between those two poles. It's not like a doubt that's locatable somewhere. It'd be, yeah, I'll have to keep an eye out for how much is mental and how much is bodily.
Okay, so I got a couple of sort of comments to make about this. One is, what I would like us to do is I would like us to say everything that we talked about today we should forget about
Okay, yeah.
going forward. So we made a distinction between speaking and hearing. Well, maybe there was a distinction between speaking and hearing, and we made a distinction about, well, this is one word at a time, that word one word at a time. Let's not particularize. Let's not think about those things as being, well, these are important things that we got to watch for.
Right, okay, right.
Instead, what I would like us to do is to say, well, here we are, intelligent people who are talking to each other, trying to figure out how to talk to each other about things which we don't really know how to do that yet. And we sort of talked about the distinction between this and that, and between bodily and mental, and between whatever. But maybe those were the wrong things to be talking about. That was our first stab at it.
Mm,
Good, well and good, fine. I'm not complaining about what we talked about. But what I don't want us to do is to be sort of trapped into that, or to overemphasize that going forward. So I don't want you to pay particular attention to this because I know, well, Hurlbert's going to be interested in the distinction between mental and bodily or whatever. That's not the point. I don't want you to try to try to have a catalog based on our first conversations here. What I do want you to do is to say, well, he wants to know what's going on in my experience, and we're going to have to struggle at putting these things into words, and I'm going to have to figure out how to tell him so that he can understand. And maybe the next batch of experiences is going to be totally different from this one. This one might be an anomalous thing, came from the first beep when the difficulties with the beeper and whatever, and future samples may have nothing to do with this,
mm.
and that would be totally fine with me. It is something of the art of the method is to not be attached to whatever it is that we've said so far.
Yeah.
So what we're really, so I've given several like little mini lectures in here. What we're trying is to not be attached to anything, not being attached to the way the world works, and not being attached to theories about the world and opinions about how my experience usually is, and what I've said to Herbert already, and all that stuff. We're we're going to try to suspend. I use the word bracket in a nod to the phenomenologist, but we're going to try to be not influenced by that that stuff. We're going to try to refine our ability to talk to each other about what seems to be directly presenting itself to Tristan at upcoming moments.
Good. That's good. Yeah. I can bracket. I will bracket.
It's a challenge. It's a lifetime challenge, I would say. Actually, it's not something that you can wake up one morning and say, "Well, I think I'll bracket all this stuff." That's sort of like waking up one morning and saying, "Well, I think I'll be a virtuoso violinist." You know, we can start working on the bow and we can start working on the finger and whatever, but it's going to take us a while to figure out all that stuff and make music that sounds good.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the one and only sample that we're going to talk about today. Is that right?
That's all I got.
Okay. And
There's
what I
more,
would
but
what I would say is that we had a productive conversation about that because it's not about the content and the percentages and whatever. It's about how to talk about it, and I think we've made some progress there.
yeah. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Amber. Thanks,
And
Russ. And
and
enjoy your
Amber
weekend.
and Amber will send you a reminder tomorrow,
Cool.
just because that's what we do.
All right.
All right. Sounds good to me. Thanks.